Okay. Good evening, Rakesh. So yesterday we saw about the exercise which we need to. The author was about to tell how to change, how to start thinking like a trader, and for that, the author says that there are three stages which we will go through. The first one is the mechanical stage, and in this case, what we will do, we will simply uh, you know we understand, we develop the trust which is needed to operate in an unlimited environment, and we flawlessly execute a trading system, and we train our mind to think in terms of probabilities, and we create a strong unshakable belief in your consistency as a trader, right? And for this, that is the first stage is a mechanical stage. The second stage is the subjective stage, where we do a lot of analysis, and we have to be very careful in this stage. The third one is the intuitive stage, where we enter the market in an intuitive manner, and it is not in a rational zone. It comes after you know uh, it comes intuitively. And the author says about the mechanical stage, we have to, what is the primary objective is to be a consistently successful trader. We have to keep telling to ourselves that that will be your goal. That will be the belief which we should have. That will be the belief where we will direct our energies. And for that, we have to transform ourselves. And to transform ourselves, we need three things. One is the willingness to change, and the clarity of our intentions, and the strength of our desire, right? So first, we have to understand that, we have to start noticing what we are thinking, saying, and doing, right? And we have to observe our own thoughts, our words, our deeds every time. And every time when we observe, we should, stop criticizing ourselves. And we should also, so for that, what we need to do is, you know, uh, because when we observe ourselves, we start criticizing ourselves, right? And as a result, what is happening? We end up in emotional pain, and we should not try to do that. Author also says that, how you have a lot of tolerance when you are, the bridge is very wide, but if you are, walking in a tight rope, then even the smallest thoughts will be will put you down. And the author also says that, you have to, if you have to produce consistent results, you have to, what is it, that acknowledge our mistakes, and we might get all these distractions because of our beliefs. And so for that, the initial stage, we have to be in the mechanical manner, right? And the author also says that, the people who are successful, uh, they are successful because they were, they had extremely unusual parents or environment. And as a result, they wouldn't have associated mistake with a negative energy. And as a result, there is no, you know, denigrating thoughts. Okay, but we ourselves, we are not in that. Uh, we did not get, our upbringing might not be the same. So as a result, what is happening? We have some self-denigrating thoughts, which is again self-sabotaging, right? So you have to basically monitor ourselves, and you have to, uh, you know, you have to experience the, you have to change that particular belief, and how you can do basically either you acquire a new set of beliefs and transfer that energy, or if it is not possible, if you are unable to bear the mistakes, if you are still getting the emotional pain, then ensure that you're reducing your position size, right? Set up, make your trading setup, and keep monitoring, and so ensure that you follow the trading setup in a mechanical manner. Okay. So once if you do these two things, then monitoring ourselves is very easy, right? So then we will have our purpose, and when our purpose is clear, we will simply direct our attention to what we are doing. And so every time when you deviate from that, in these two things, author is telling that keep doing it again and again and again. Okay. So now with that, we ended yesterday's session. Today we'll see about the role of self-discipline. I call the process I just described as self-discipline. I define self-discipline as a mental technique to redirect our focus of attention to the object of our goal or desire when that goal or desire conflicts with some other component of our mental environment. The first thing you should notice about this definition is that self-discipline is a technique to create a new mental framework. It is not a personality trait. People are not born with self-discipline. In fact, when you consider how I define it, being born with self-discipline is not even possible. However, as a technique to be used in the process of personal transformation, anybody can choose to use self-discipline. So the author is telling that whatever this process, right, where if you deviate from that particular objective, bring the focus back, we choose to redirect our thoughts and actions towards that particular thing, right? So that particular action, the author calls as self-discipline. Okay, so it is basically a mental technique to redirect our focus of attention to our goal. Okay. And when that desire or goal conflicts with some other component of our mental environment. So the author also says that it is not something which everybody is born with, and it is actually a technique, right, to create a new mental framework. And so as a result, since it's not born and everybody is born with, anybody can be self-disciplined. That's what the author is telling. So here is an example from my life that illustrates the underlying dynamics of how this technique works. In 1978, I decided that I wanted to become a runner. I don't exactly remember what my underlying motivation was, except that I had spent the previous 8 years in a very inactive lifestyle. I was not involved with any sports or hobbies, unless you call watching television a hobby. Previously, in both high school and at least part of college, I was very active in sports, especially ice hockey. However, coming out of college, my life was unfolding in the way that was very different from what I had expected. It was not to my liking, but at this time, I felt powerless to do anything about it. This led to a period of inactivity, which is a nice way of saying that I was severely depressed. Again, I am not sure what prompted me to suddenly want to become a runner. Maybe I saw some TV program that sparked my interest. I do, however, remember that the motivation was very strong. So I went out and bought myself some running shoes, put them on, and went out to run. The first thing I discovered was that I could not do it. I did not have the physical stamina to run more than 50 or 60 yards. This was very surprising. I did not realize, nor would I have ever believed, that I was so out of shape that I could not run even 100 yards. This realization was so disheartening that I did not attempt to run again for 2 or 3 weeks. The next time out, I still could not run more than 50 or 60 yards. I tried again the next day with, of course, the same result. I became so discouraged about my deteriorated physical condition that I did not run again for another 4 months. Now it is the spring of 1979. I am once again determined to become a runner, but at the same time very frustrated with the lack of my progress. Okay. So here the author is telling about his own example, you know, uh, where initially he wanted to become a runner, and he did not know why he suddenly wanted to become a runner, but uh, he was just watching television, right? And for the previous 8 years, he was just watching television. Before that, he was actually active, and he was actually in the ice hockey. But after he came out of college, he was basically not doing anything. Basically, he was telling that he was severely depressed, right? And so all of a sudden, now he suddenly had that urge after 8 years to start. He said he wanted to become a runner, right? Now he went and bought some shoes, and he tried to, uh, so he tried to run, but he could not run. And as a result, what happened? This was so demotivating for him. He could not even run few yards, and so he became deteriorated, and he did not run for another 4 months. Okay. Now it is the spring of 1979. I am once again determined to become a runner, but at the same time very frustrated with my lack of progress. As I was contemplating my dilemma, it occurred to me that one of my problems was that I did not have a goal to work towards. Saying that I wanted to be a runner was great, but what did that mean? I really did not know. It was too vague and abstract. I had to have something more tangible to work towards. So I decided that I wanted to be able to run 5 miles by the end of the summer. 5 miles seemed insurmountable at the time, but thinking that I might be able to do it generated a lot of enthusiasm. This increased level of enthusiasm gave me enough impetus to run 4 times that week. At the end of this first week, I was really surprised to discover even a little bit of exercise improved my stamina and ability to run a little farther each time. This created even more enthusiasm, so I went out and bought a stopwatch and blank book to be used as a running diary. I set up a 2 mile course and marked off each quarter mile. In the diary, I entered the date, my distance, my time, and how I felt physically each time I ran. Okay, so at this point of time, he was determined to become a runner again, but he was actually frustrated, right? So he observed himself and he asked himself that what he wanted to be a runner, but what does that mean, right? It was too vague, it was too abstract, and there was nothing, which will tell that he has achieved it, right? So he said he should have a goal, right? And what was the goal? That he should be able to run 5 miles by the end of the summer, right? And but 5 miles, it sounded very difficult at that time because he was just starting, and but it actually generated a lot of enthusiasm, right? So this level of enthusiasm gave him enough impetus to run 4 times that week. Okay, so basically every time he wanted to run, he ran 4 times that week. Okay, and at the end of first week, he was surprised that a little bit of exercise improved his stamina and ability to run a little farther each time. So every time when he exercised, he ran, little bit, it increased his stamina, right? So as a result, he could run a little bit more, and uh, you know, he got more enthusiasm. And as a result, what happened? He went out and bought a stopwatch and a blank book also to be used as a running diary. Okay, so he also started entering the date, the distance, and time, and every time how he felt. So he started writing all these things in the diary. Now I thought I was well on my way to the 5 miles until I literally ran into my next set of problems. Biggest were the conflicting and distracting thoughts that flooded my consciousness every time I decided I wanted to go out and run. I was amazed at the number of the reasons I found for not doing it. It is hot or cold outside. It looks like it is going to rain. I am still a little tired from the last time I ran, even though it was 3 days ago. Nobody else I know is doing this. or the most prevalent, I'll go as soon as this PV program is over. Okay. So what happened was initially he was very enthusiastic, but after a particular point of time, he was having a lot of mental problems. What were the problems? Basically, he was giving excuses. He will tell you whether it was very hot outside, or it was very cold outside, and he will tell it was going to rain, and he tell that he was feeling tired, and he'll tell to himself that nobody else is doing this, so why should I do it? And then he will finally tell that he will go as soon as this TV program got over. But he never went. I did not know of any other way to deal with this conflicting mental energy except to redirect my conscious attention towards what I was trying to accomplish. I really wanted to get to 5 miles by the end of this summer. I found that sometimes my desire was stronger than the conflict. As a result, I managed to get my running shoes on, actually step outside, and start running. However, more times than not, my conflicting and distracting thoughts caused me to stay put. In fact, in the beginning stages, I estimate that two-thirds of the time I was unable to get past the conflicting energy. So he was having conflicts in the mental energy. Okay. So, and what was the only way he could, address the conflict is to redirect his conscious attentions towards his goal, right? So he really wanted to go get to 5 miles, and that desire was stronger than the conflict. As a result, he managed to get his use every time to step out and started that. But many times the conflicting and distracting thoughts caused him not to run policy. Two-thirds of the night he was finding it very difficult to get on that particular thought. Okay. Uh, yeah. So the next problem. So the first problem was he was having this conflicting thoughts, and two-thirds of the time that negative thought was taking over his positive thoughts, right? The next problem I encountered was that when I started approaching the point where I was able to run 1 mile, I was so thrilled with myself that it occurred to me I was going to need an additional mechanism to get me to the 5 miles. I reasoned that once I got to the point where I could run 2 or 3, maybe 3 miles, I would be so overwhelming pleased with myself that I would not feel any need to fulfill my 5 mile objective. So I made a rule for myself. You could call it the 5 mile rule. If I manage to get my running shoes on and get outside in spite of all the conflicting thoughts trying to talk me out of it, I committed myself to running at least one step farther than the last time I ran. It was certainly all right if I ran more than one step further, but it could not be less than one step, no matter what. As it turns out, I never broke this rule, and by the end of the summer, I made it to 5 miles. Okay, so the next problem he encountered was he finally somehow managed to reach 1 mile, and at that time he said that he needs some additional mechanism to go from 1 mile to 5 mile. Okay, and he felt that once he could run to 2 or 3 miles, uh, and he thought that he will become so satisfied that he will not go towards the 5 mile objective. Okay, because he's like now he has reached 2 or 3 miles. Now he will be so satisfied, and he will tell to himself that's okay. But he made a rule, and he knew that this will happen, right? Because once he reached the 2 or 3 mile, he said he knows that he will become happy with himself. So what he said, he made a rule to himself. That is, he calls it as the 5 mile rule. What is a 5 mile rule? Basically, if he could somehow manage to get his shoes on and somehow convince himself to run, and somehow by breaking all the conflicting thoughts, he will actually run one step extra than previous day. Okay, so every time when he was taking a what is it called, uh, somehow if he managed to run, he will tell to himself that I will somehow make one step extra. Okay. So it was certainly all right that if I ran more than one step further, but it could not be less than one step, no matter what. As it turns out, I never broke this rule, and by the end of the summer, I made it to 5 miles. Okay. So he always, every time when he somehow he manages to run, he ensured that he ran one step extra, and by the end of the summer, he could achieve the 5 miles. But then something really interesting and completely unanticipated happened before I got there. As I got closer to fulfilling my 5 mile objective, little by little, the conflicting thoughts began to dissipate. Eventually, they did not exist at all. At that point, I found that if I wanted to run, I was completely free to do so without any mental resistance, conflict, or competing thoughts. Given what a struggle it had been, I was amazed. The result, I went on to run on a very regular basis for the next 16 years. Okay. So as he reached the 5 miles objective, he also noticed that there is no longer conflicting thoughts. It's like, he don't want, he's no longer giving excuses to himself. He's no longer telling this is hot or cold or something. He just wanted to run, right? There was no mental resistance also. And he was actually happy, and he continued to run for the next 16 years. For those of you who may be interested, I don't run so much now because 5 years ago I decided to start playing ice hockey again. Hockey is an extremely strenuous sport. Sometimes I play as many as 4 times a week. Considering my age, over 50, and the level of exertion the sport requires, it usually takes me a day or two to recover, which does not leave much room for running anymore. So now he's like, he's almost 50 years. So he's now playing ice hockey. So, and that takes a lot of his energy, and it takes uh, some time to recover. So it doesn't have any room for running, right? Now, if you take these experiences and put them into the context of what we now understand about the nature of beliefs, there are a number of observations we can make. Okay. Initially, my desire to be a runner had no foundation of support in my mental system. In other words, there was no other source of energy, an energized concept demanding expression consistent with my desire. I actually had to do something to create that support. To create a belief that I am a runner required that I create a series of experiences consistent with the new belief. Remember that everything we think, say, or do contributes energy to some belief in our mental system. Each time I experienced a conflicting thought and was able to successfully refocus on my objective with enough conviction to get into my running shoes and out the door, I added energy to the belief that I am a runner. And just as important, I inadvertently drew energy away from all of the beliefs that would argue otherwise. I say inadvertently because there are various techniques specifically designed to identify and deactivate conflicting beliefs. But at that time in my life, I did not understand the underlying dynamics of the process of transformation I was going through. So it wouldn't have occurred to me to avail myself of such techniques. So the first time when he started to run, there was no energy, no source of energy, no motivation, which is consistent with his desire. So to create that support, to create what that he has to believe that he's a runner, because that is a new belief. So far, he is not a runner. That is his belief. So now to create this new belief, he is telling that he has to do something which is consistent with the new belief, right? So whatever we think, whatever we say, or whatever we do, that will contribute to our mental system, right? So every time we have a conflicting thought, and he was able to refocus his objective with enough conviction to get me into the running shoes and out the door. So every time he basically pushed himself away from that, he pushed himself to run, there is a new thought, right? Now it is convincing himself that he is a runner because he has now pushed himself and started running. So now he is a runner. So that belief is getting stronger. That belief is getting energy, right? So it is not consciously happening. It is a side effect. Inadvertently, it is happening. And he says that it is inadvertently because there are techniques by which you can actually deactivate these beliefs, but he did not understand those dynamics at that particular point of time. Okay. He did not even have those techniques. He says that there are techniques to, switch off your conflicting beliefs, but he did not know. So it became, subconsciously without his awareness, the energy started, transferring from the conflicting beliefs to his new belief that he is a runner. Now I can effortlessly express myself as a runner because I am a runner. That energized concept is now a functioning part of my identity. When I first started out, I happened to have a number of conflicting beliefs about running. As a result, I needed the technique of self-discipline to become one. Now I don't need self-discipline because being a runner is who I am. When our beliefs are completely aligned with our goals or desires, there is no source of conflicting energy. If there is no source of conflicting energy, then there is no source of distracting thoughts, excuses, rationalizations, justifications, or mistakes. So now he is now, this particular thought has become so energized that it has become part of his identity because he actually is a runner now, right? And he first started, there was a lot of conflicting beliefs. So he needed self-discipline to become. So what is the self-discipline? It's basically he's telling that, you just have to put that effort, that focus to wish, to achieve your goal. So that is the technique of self-discipline, right? Now he does not need self-discipline because he has already achieved. What is that? He is now a runner, right? So now your beliefs are completely aligned with our goals. There is no longer conflicting energy. And when there's no conflict in energy, you don't have to, there is no distractions, there is no excuses, there is no rationalization, there is no justifications, or there are no mistakes, right? So beliefs can be changed. And if it is possible to change one belief, then it is possible to change any belief if you understand that you really aren't changing them, but are only transferring energy from one concept to another. Okay. The form of the belief targeted for change remains intact. Therefore, two completely contradictory beliefs can exist in your mental system side by side. But if you have drawn the energy out of one belief and completely energized the other, no contradiction exists from a functional perspective. Only the belief combined with the energy will have the capacity to act as a force on your state of mind, on your perception and interpretation of information, and your behavior. Okay. So author is telling that beliefs can be changed, and if it is possible to change one belief, it is possible to change any belief. But you have to understand that you are actually not changing them. You are just transferring the energy from one concept to another, right? So two contradictory beliefs can exist in our mental system side by side. Okay. But if you draw the energy from one and completely energize the other, no contradiction exists from a functional perspective. Okay. Because two beliefs are not going to act. Only the one which has the energy will act, right? So that is what he's telling. Only the belief combined with the energy will have the capacity to act as a force on your state of mind, on your perception and interpretation of information and your behavior. Now, the sole purpose of trading mechanically is to transform yourself into a consistently successful trader. If there is anything in your mental environment that is in conflict with the principles of creating the belief that I am a consistently successful trader, then you will need to employ the technique of self-discipline to integrate these principles as a dominant functioning part of your identity. Once the principles become who you are, you will no longer need self-discipline because the process of being consistent will become effortless. So the author is telling that, if you know that, now he is bringing the concept of the entire exercise to trading. Okay. What he's telling that if your purpose of trading mechanically is to become a consistently successful trader. Okay. So if there is anything in that environment just conflicting, right, then we need to employ the technique of self-discipline to integrate these principles as a dominant functioning part of your identity. Once the principle becomes who you are, you will no longer need self-discipline because the process of being consistent will become effortless, right? So just like how he used the technique of self-discipline, the author is telling that you have to trade mechanically to become into a consistent, successful trader, right? So keep telling to yourself, and if there is something which is going against your consistent, successful trader belief, you need to bring the self-discipline as the dominant function, and you have to basically keep doing that. Once you keep doing that, we don't need self-discipline because that will become effortless, right? Remember that consistency is not the same as the ability to put on a winning trade or even a string of winning trades for that matter. Because putting on a winning trade requires absolutely no skill. All you have to do is guess correctly, which is no different than guessing the outcome of a coin toss. Whereas consistency is a state of mind that once achieved won't allow you to be any other way. You won't have to try to be consistent because it will be a natural function of your identity. In fact, if you have to try, it is an indication that you have not completely integrated the principles of consistent success as dominant unconflicted beliefs. Okay, so it's very important that here the author is telling that consistency is not equal to winning trade. Okay, uh, consistency is you coming and showing up. You coming and showing up, doing the same thing again and again and again, right? And because the author says that to put on a winning trade, you don't require any skill. Okay, because it's random, right? It can happen or it cannot happen. It's just a probability. You have some edge that it might happen, right? So all we have to do is to guess correctly, right? Again, it is like a guessing only. You are guessing that it will go in this particular direction or something like that, right? And what will happen as a result, if you are guessing, it is like just tossing a coin. It can happen in your way, it cannot happen in your way, right? So what is happening is you won't have to try to be consistent because it will be a natural function of your identity. And so basically you are just consistent. If you try to be consistent, that means it is again going against the principles of consistency because you are like, you're thinking that success is needed. So then that will go against. So that is what author is telling. For example, predefine your risk is a step in the process of being consistent. If it takes any special effort to predefine your risk, if you have to consciously remind yourself to do it, if you experience any conflicting thoughts, in essence trying to talk you out of doing it, or if you find yourself in a trade where you have not predefined your risk, then this principle is not a dominant functioning part of your identity. It is not who you are. If it were, it wouldn't even occur to you not to predefine your risk. Okay. So the author is now connecting with the loss. He's telling that every time when you start a trade, you have to define what your risk is. Okay. So every time if you are like, you don't want to define your risk, then it means you are not. And if you are constantly reminding yourself that I have to define your risk, then it is actually not working. Okay. Or if you every time when you take a trade and you are having some conflict, so let me not predefine this risk. Let me try to push my luck today, something like that. Then it is actually if you find yourself in a trade where you have not predefined your risk, then this principle is not a dominant functioning part of your identity. Okay, it means it is not who you are. If it were, it wouldn't even occur to you not to predefine your risk. Okay, So by consistent trading, author is telling that every time you start your trade, you have to predefine your risk. That is what author is meaning as consistent. Okay. If and when all of the sources of conflict have been deactivated, there is no longer a potential for you to be any other way. What was once a struggle will become virtually effortless. At that point, it may seem to other people that you are so disciplined because you can do something they find difficult, if not impossible. But the reality is that you aren't being disciplined at all. You are simply functioning from a different set of beliefs that compel you to behave in a way that is consistent with your desires, goals, or objectives. So every time we take a trade, if we put the stop loss and we ensure that we are doing it always first without any what is it called uh, you know anything which is blocking us from doing it, and we become we immediately become effortless, right? We kind of ensure that become so that becomes part of our identity. Okay, so people will think that we are disciplined, but actually we are no longer disciplined. We are actually having a different set of beliefs, right? So that is that belief is what it is actually pushing us towards our desires, our goals, and our objectives. Okay, so others will think that we are so self-disciplined and all, but actually our beliefs are completely different from what they have, right? So every time we take a trade, that is what the author is telling us consistent trading. So you have to predefine your risk and put your stop loss. Start from there. And if you are not doing that, it means you are not consistent. So that is what the author is telling. So every time you calculate how much you want to lose also. And be okay with that. If you reach, if you are about to lose that particular amount of money, you should be okay with that. Creating a belief that I am a consistent winner is the primary objective, but like my intention to become a runner, it is too broad and abstract to implement without breaking it down into a step-by-step process. So what I am going to do is break this belief down into its smallest definable parts and then give you a plan to integrate each part as a dominant belief. The following sub-beliefs are the building blocks that provide the underlying structure for what it means to be a consistent winner. Okay. So uh, you have to create a new belief, right? So what is the new belief? The new belief in this case, the finally objective is you have to become consistent winner, right? But that is actually very broad, okay, and it is very abstract, right? You don't know what is defined as consistent winner, right? And so you have to break that into step-by-step process, okay? So that is what he's going to do. What is he going to do? He's going to break this belief into smallest definable parts and then give you a plan to integrate each part as a dominant belief. So he's going to give a set of beliefs. That is the exercise. He's going to break the bigger belief of consistent winner into smaller beliefs, and he wants each of this to act as a dominant belief, right? So these are all the building blocks which provide the underlying structure for what it means to be a consistent winner. Okay, so here is that secret we are all waiting for. Okay, I am a consistent winner because I objectively identify my edges. Okay, I am a consistent winner because I objectively identify my edges. I predefine the risk of every trade. I completely accept the risk, or I am willing to let go of the trade. I completely accept the risk, or I am willing to let go of the trade. I act on my edges without reservation or hesitation. I pay myself as the market makes money available to me. I continually monitor my susceptibility for making errors. I understand the absolute necessity of these principles of consistent success, and therefore I never violate them. Okay. So these 7 points, these are all the 7 smaller, beliefs which we have to put each of them as a dominant belief in our brain. So what is the first one? We have to we have to tell to ourselves that I objectively identify my edges. Okay, so what is it? It's a probability. Every trade is an edge. So you have to objectively identify without any, random, thoughts or whatever. Every time you take a trade, you predefine the risk also of every trade. Okay. So every time you take a trade, you predefine the risk of every trade. I completely accept the risk or I am willing to let go of the trade. Okay. So he completely accepts the risk. So if you fail today, you have to let go of the trade. You have to accept the risk. I act on my edges without reservation or hesitation. So every time when you get the edge, when you feel that you have the edge, you quickly act without any reservation or hesitation. Okay. I pay myself as the market makes money available to me. Okay. So every time the market is making money available to you, pay yourself. I continually monitor my susceptibility for making errors. Okay. So you have to keep on, I will keep on monitoring myself if I am making errors. I understand the absolute necessity of these principles of consistent success and therefore I never violate them. So all these principles are so fundamental, so necessary that I will never violate. What are all the principles? First, I will identify the edge. I will define my risk. If I will completely accept the risk, and if it's not working in my direction, I will let go. Fourth one, I will do I if I see that I found out an edge, I will quickly act without any hesitation. And whenever market gives money, I will pay myself, and I'll keep on monitoring my uh, whether I am making an error. And finally, I will absolutely understand that all these things, whatever I said so far, are so important that I will never violate them. Okay. So these beliefs are the 7 principles of consistency. To integrate these principles into our mental system at a functional level requires that you purposely create a series of experiences that are consistent with them. This is no different from the boy who wanted to play with the dogs or my desire to be a runner. Before he could play with a dog, the boy first had to make several attempts just to get close to one. Eventually, as the balance of energy in his mental system shifted, he could play with the dogs without any internal resistance to become a runner. Sorry, without any internal resistance. To become a runner, I had to create the experience of running in spite of everything inside me that argued otherwise. Eventually, as the energy shifted more and more in favor of this new definition of myself, running became a natural expression of my identity. Okay. So these 7 principles, you know, these are the principles, these are the beliefs, which are the principles for becoming a consistent trader. Okay. So what is the first one? You have to objectively identify an edge. You have to define the risk. You have to completely accept the risk. Even if it goes against you, you have to let go. Fourth one is once you found out the edge, you will basically quickly act without any hesitation. The fifth one is whenever the market is giving you profits, you take that money. And whenever you are making a mistake, sixth one, you basically keep on monitoring whether are you going to make a mistake or not. The seventh one is you always believe that all the above, whatever you have said is so important, so necessary that you will never violate them. Okay. So, and to integrate these things into our system, we have to keep having some experience that is consistent with them, right? So you have to at least do for few trades where you follow these things, and that is what. So once you create those experience, right? For example, take few trades where you are okay with the loss. Take few trades you define the loss. Take few trades where you get that money available. Take few trades where the minute you find an edge, you go quickly act. Take few trades where you first identify the edge, and take few trades where you are constantly looking, and every trade don't follow all these things. That is what the author is telling us. You have to create a series of experiences that are consistent with them. So this is like the same as how he wanted to become a runner, the boy who wanted to play with the dogs, right? So first, before he starts to play the dog, he has to keep trying. Okay, you have to keep making several attempts, right? And once that, once he keeps going, he will finally, after some time, he will get that, the energy will get shifted from his negative energy to positive energy, and he will start going to every dog without any resistance. Similarly, just like that, if he wanted to become a runner, he has to do some amount of, he has to put that effort. As he keeps putting, energy will become shift, right, into this new definition, right? And that will become your natural expression. So that is what the author is telling. Obviously, what we are trying to accomplish here is far more complex than becoming a runner or petting a dog. But the underlying dynamics of the process are identical. We'll start with an objective, specific objective. The first principle of consistency is the belief I objectively identify my edges. There is a first principle. The key word here is objectively. Okay. So being objective means there is no potential to define, interpret, and therefore perceive any market information from either a painful or euphoric perspective. The way to be objective is to operate out of beliefs that keep your expectations neutral and to always take the unknown forces into consideration. Okay. So here the author is telling that, how to, so you have to first step just defined in this is to be, you have to objectively identify my edges. And how you do that is, it is basically you don't take any trade based on, what is it called, as painful or euphoria, So, you keep your expectations neutral, anything can happen, and always understand that there will be something which will always make you make you go wrong also. Okay. Remember, you have to specifically train your mind to be objective and to stay focused in the now moment opportunity flow. Our minds are not naturally wired to think this way. So, to be an objective observer, you have to learn to think from the market's perspective. From the market's perspective, there are always unknown forces waiting to act on price movement. Therefore, from the market's perspective, every moment is truly unique, even though the moment may look, sound, or feel exactly the same as some moment logged away in your memory bank. Okay, so so the author is telling that we have to train our mind to be objective and to stay focused in the now moment opportunity flow. And what we are doing is we are actually not wired, to be objective. So we have to start thinking from the market's perspective, right? So from the perspective of market, what is happening? Anything can happen. Anybody can mess you up, right? So if some huge guy might mess your trade. If you think from that perspective, you will start thinking that every moment is actually very unique, right? So and it might seem look exactly the same, but actually it's not so, right? So the instant you either decide or assume you know what is going to happen next, you will automatically expect to be right. However, what you know, at least at the rational level of thinking, you can only take into consideration your unique past, which may not have any relationship to what is actually happening from the market's perspective. At that point, any market information that is not consistent with your expectation has the potential to be defined and interpreted as painful. To avoid experiencing the pain, your mind will automatically compensate with both conscious and subconscious pain avoidance mechanisms for any differences between what you expect and what the market is offering. So what is happening here is that, you know, the minute if you assume or if you decide that what will happen, you immediately want to be right, right? So what will happen is that from that you will actually, what you know is only a unique past, and it may not have happened or not it may happen or it may not happen, right? So that is what the author is telling. So if you assume that you know what is going to happen, then what will happen if it does not happen, and it will cause you to experience pain. Okay, so as a result, what will happen to avoid this particular pain inducing mechanism, your beliefs will actually, it will compensate, you know, it will compensate somehow. Either you might not take the trade, or you might, do something, might lose money on the table, right? So that is what the author says as an illusion, right? It is a state of, so in a state of illusion, we are not objective and we are not connected in the now moment opportunity flow. Okay, so because we have some expectation that it should go in this direction, what will happen? We will not be in the now moment opportunity flow, right? So what will happen? We will do the typical trading errors. What are all the typical trading errors? We will hesitate, we will jump the gun, and we will not predefine your risk. And we will define your risk but refuse to take the loss, and letting the trade turn into a bigger loser, getting out of the winning trade too soon, not taking any profits out of winning trade, letting a winning trade turn into a loser, moving a stop loss closer to entry point only to get stopped out and watch the market trade back in your favor, or trading too large a position in relationship to your equity. Okay, so many things. One is the you will hesitate, will not take the trade, or you will quickly take the trade, jumping the gun, and you will not define your risk. And but you might define your risk, but you will not take the loss. And what will happen? It will become a bigger loser also. And you might get out of the winning trade very soon, and you will not take the profits from a winning trade, or it will go to winning trade at that time. It will, and by the time you will want to be greedy, and it will become a loser also, or you will move the stop loss closer to your entry points, things like that. And so, or you will take a huge position in relationship to your equity. The 5 fundamental truths about the market will keep your expectations neutral. Focus your mind in the now moment opportunity flow by disassociating the present moment from your past, and therefore eliminate your potential to commit these errors. So we saw some 5 fundamental truths earlier, right? So the market is uh, random. You don't have to know what will happen to make money, and it's just a probability where you can, it's a winning, and there are random distributions, like, and every moment in the market is unique. So these are all the 5 things which we saw. So if you keep thinking, if you keep reminding all these things, then we keep reminding them of all these things, then we will be in the now moment opportunity flow, and we will not do all these mistakes. Okay, so when you stop making these errors, you will start trusting yourself. Okay, as your sense of self-trust increases, so your sense of self-confidence. The greater your self-confidence, the easier it will be to execute your trades, act on your edges without reservation or hesitation. The 5 truths will also create a state of mind in which you will genuinely accept the risks of trading. When you genuinely accept the risks, you will be at peace with any outcome. When you are at peace with any outcome, you will experience a carefree, objective state of mind when you make yourself available to perceive and act upon whatever the market is offering you at any given now moment. Okay, so when you're trusting yourself, what will happen? Your confidence will increase, right? So when your confidence is increasing, as a result, you will easily execute your trades, right? And when you easily execute your trades, And you will also have that 5 truths, right? That will create a state of mind where we accept the risks of trading, where we tell to ourselves that, yeah, there's a possibility that this can go wrong. And when you genuinely accept the risks, you will be peace. You will not be like, okay, I made a mistake. That's okay. This is expected. Something like that, right? So when you are at peace with any outcome, what will happen? We will experience a carefree, objective state of mind. Okay. So we will not be, if anything happens, that's okay, right? So when you and an objective is a state of mind. When you will make your up, so as a result, what will happen? Anything which happens, you will perceive and you will act upon what the market is offering you from that particular now moment. Okay, so this is what the author is telling. So you have to trust yourself, and when you stop becoming, when you are following all these things, you'll stop trading errors. When you stop trading errors, you'll trust yourself. You trust yourself, you'll build self-confidence, and when you have that self-confidence, you will also, this 5 truths, you will also ensure that you understand the risk of trading. So as a result, when you're confident and you understand the risks of trading, every time when that happens, you're okay, right? And when you're at peace with that outcome, you will create a carefree, objective state of mind. So what will happen? You will be very open. Anything happens, anything, any information comes, you will just act, based on whatever the market is offering you, right? So this is what the author is telling. So the first objective is to integrate as a dominant belief. I objectively identify my edges. Okay. The challenge now is, how do you get there? How do you transform yourself into a person who can consistently think in the market's perspective? The process of transformation starts with your desire and your willingness to refocus on the object of your desire. Okay. So the first thing which the author says is that you have to identify your edges in an objective manner. Okay. So how do you define your edge in an identify your edge in an objective manner, right? So for this, you have to transform. How to transform? You have to have that desire and your willingness, self-discipline. So you have to have that desire. You should desire it passionately. You should, refocus on this object of desire, right? So desire is a force, okay? And you don't have to coincide or agree with anything that you currently believe to be true, right? So a clear desire aimed squarely at a specific objective is a very powerful tool. Okay. So you have to, what you need to do is you have to desire very, very, very focused in a focused and intense manner, right? So because that desire is a force, right? And a clear desire aimed squarely at a specific objective is a powerful tool. So you have to focus that desire, and that is actually a very powerful tool. You can use the force of your desire to create an entirely new version or dimension to your identity. Shift the energy between two or more conflicting concepts, or change the context or polarity of your memories from negative to positive. So that desire we can actually use to change our identity, right? So that desire we can shift from, two or more conflicting concepts. Okay. And that desire can help us change our memories from negative to positive. Okay. I'm sure you are familiar with the saying, make up your mind. The implication of making up our minds is that we decide exactly what we desire with so much clarity, absolutely no lingering doubts, and with so much conviction that literally nothing stands in our way, either internally or externally. If there is enough force behind our resolve, it is possible to experience a major shift in our mental structure virtually instantaneously. Deactivating internal conflicts is not a function of time, it is a function focused desire. Although it can take a considerable amount of time to get to the point where we really make up our minds. Otherwise, in the absence of extreme clarity and conviction, the technique of self discipline over time will do the job quite nicely, if, of course, you are willing to use it. Okay. So the author is telling that you are familiar with the thought of making up your mind, right? What is the making up our mind? is that we decide exactly what we are desiring, so that with so much clarity, and there is no doubt. Okay, nothing which stands in our way. Okay, it could be either internal or external, right? And if there is enough force behind our resolve, and if there is so much desire, that our mental structure will actually shift, right? So actually the author is telling that it's not like it will take time to uh, you know change the conflict. It's actually a function of desire. Okay, so here he is telling that your internal conflict is not like you'll take time to change. It is a how badly you want, how focused is it, right? Although it can take considerable amount of time to get that point, we really make up mind. And also, although it takes some time, right? So in the absence of extreme clarity and conviction, the technique of self-discipline over time will do the job quite nicely. Okay. So if of course you are willing to use it. Okay. So in the, if you don't have that desire, what the author is telling that, self-discipline will do it. Okay. So just like, keep repetitively doing, telling, keep repetitively, mechanically, uh, you know, trying to put the focus back, right? So that is what author is telling. Either you should have that particular focused, very powerful desire, right? So it is actually a no, not a function of time. It is a function of how much desire you have, how badly you want, right? So that will help you. If you don't have that particular, uh, you know, desire, time actually, you have to do the concept. You have to slowly move towards it by concept of technique of self-discipline, right? So otherwise, in the absence of the extreme clarity, technique of summary will do the job quite nicely. To get there, you must make up your mind with as much conviction and clarity as possible that more than anything else, you desire consistency from your trading. Okay, so you have to make up your mind that you are just going to be consistent. That is what you are going to do. So this is necessary because it is like most traders, you are going to be up against some very formidable conflicting forces. For example, if you have been trading to get high from the euphoria of catching a big move, to impress your family and friends, to be a hero, to fulfill an addiction to random rewards, to be right about your predictions, or for any other reason that has nothing to do with being consistent, then you'll find the force of these other motivations will not only act as an obstacle, making the trading exercise I'm about to give you very difficult, but it could very well be strong enough even to keep you from doing the exercise at all. Okay, so the author is telling that you have to develop that, you have to make up that mind, that you have to develop that desire, that your aim is now going to be only to be a consistent trader, consistently successful trader. And consistency, you have to just follow these 7 principles, right? But if you don't, but if you're not going, this is very important because you will be fighting a lot of conflicting forces, right? Because what is happening, we might be into trading to impress our friends, to impress our wife, to impress our husband, to impress our family, right? We have to, or we might get that, oh my, I caught this big move. So I get that high, right? So that you might be into the trading. You might be to do that, right? Or you might be into trading and that your predictions should be right. Okay. Or you might be in the trading and because of all these things, but all these motivations, what they do, they are going to act as an obstacle, right? And what will happen because of all these three things, you will not even do that exercise also. right? Because you have to impress your friend, you have to be right, you have to catch the big candle, you have to, you know, impress your family, and you have to be addicted to randomness. All these things, what will do? It will not make you do that exercise. Okay. Remember the boy who had no desire to be like the other children and interact with dogs. In essence, he decided to live with the active contradiction between his minimally charged positive belief that not all dogs are dangerous and his core negatively charged belief that all dogs are dangerous. He had the ability to perceive friendly dogs, but at the same time found it impossible to interact with them. Unless he desires to change it, the imbalance of energy between these two beliefs will stay exactly as it is for his entire life. To even start this process, you have to want consistency so much that you would be willing to give up all the other reasons, motivations, or agendas you have for trading that are not consistent with the process of integrating the beliefs that create consistency. A clear, intense desire is an absolute prerequisite if you are going to make this process work for you. Okay, so here, the author says that if you are going to come up with other beliefs, they will prevent you from doing this exercises, which he is going to tell in the next particular topics. So the author also reminds us of the boy who had, who had no desire to interact with the dogs, right? Although he knew that not all dogs are dangerous, he was not ready to interact because he didn't have that desire, right? So unless that desire is there, that imbalance of energy will actually stay as it is. So he will never be able to go and become friendly with the dog, right? So to even start this process, you have to give up all other motivations, right? All other agendas that you are not going to, catch a huge candle. You are not going to make more money. You are not here to impress other people. You are not going to get high. You are not going to, get random rewards, and you are not going to tell to yourself that you are right. And all these things you have to let it go and follow the exercise, and that should be your desire, and that is first important if you want this entire process to work for you. So with this we will end today's session. The next are the real exercises which the author is going to tell, which we will with that we will end this particular book. So before I end, we'll just quickly wrap up on the whatever we read today. So the author says that the self-discipline is very important. And what is the self-discipline? It is basically just the focus that you will, or the attention which you will, or the force which you will put just to move towards your whatever you wanted to achieve. And for that, the author gave the example of how he wanted to run and how he came up with a set of things. So how he started how he said that by the time I achieve this, I will get, what is it called? I will stop after I run 1 or 2 miles. So he said that, every time he will just add one step than the previous day. And finally, if he kept on doing, he started running, and it became so natural that he became a runner. The author says that how that experience happened, and he initially had no foundation, that energy was not there, but to create that, he had to, you know, create some mental system. He had to put some effort. That is what the author calls as a self-discipline. And now, after that, he became a runner. He no longer needs, because that is part of his identity. And so that distractions and all those things did not come. And not only that, and he's telling that beliefs can be changed, and you have to just draw the energy from one to the other, and so that the one which is contradicting will no longer act. And so for that, you have to employ, what is the core belief, what is your goal right now? Your goal is to become a consistently successful trader. And for that, you have to employ this concept of self-discipline, right? So, and what is the first step in that? You have to, into becoming consistently successful trader, you have to you have to define your risk, right? If you don't define your risk, so the author is telling that it is not that, consistency is not same as winning. Okay. So it is okay to lose, but you have to be consistent. You have to do it. You have to accept it. And for that to become consistent, you have to employ these 7 principles. First is you have to identify your edge. The next one is you have to predefine the risk. And if it goes against you, you have to completely accept the risk. You should not move the stop loss somewhere. Fourth one, every time you identify the edge, you just go blindly and do it. Fifth one, you have to make your money available to you when the market is giving you the money. Sixth one is you have to keep on monitoring yourself if you are making any errors. The seventh one is you absolutely believe that these are all absolutely necessary and you will not violate them. And so this is what you have to do. And for this, you have to objectively define your edges. And how to be objective, you have to basically train your mind to be in the opportunity flow. And how you can be in the now moment opportunity flow when you believe in the 5 fundamental truths. And as also, not only that, you should actually not, you know you know the 5 fundamental truths, if you follow, you will not do any of these mistakes. And uh, and the more how you will define your objectively how you will identify these edges, that for it you have to put the desire. You need to have a strong desire. Okay, so and to objectively identify your edge, you should not have the conflicts. And how to avoid the conflict? One way is to have so much focused desire. And it is not because how the author says that, the conflicts are how it can be deactivated. It's not a function of time. It is how strong your desire is. And if you don't have that, you just follow the concept of self discipline, and time will actually make you reach this particular stage, right? So for this, we have to make up my mind, right? And most importantly, we should ensure that, we should not have all these kind of uh, motivations, right? So what are all the motivations? Like getting euphoria by catching a big move, impressing our family, to be a hero, to be addicted to random rewards, to be right. And these are all the things which are going to make you, which will basically prevent you from following the exercise itself, right? So because you immediately want to catch him, you will forget to put the stop loss. You will think about the stop loss. You will think that it will go in your direction. It will burn you badly. Or immediately you want to be right. You will be like, whatever uh, it might be going against you, but you will be telling no, 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 it will come back. It will become a bigger loss. Things like that, right? So you have to avoid all these kind of mindsets. And for that, you have to put that effort. That is what a desire. So your desire should be so strong that you will let go of all these things and focus on only your desire is to follow all these 7 steps. Okay. So once that is done, so for that, we need to make up our mind. Okay. And if we don't make up our mind, we'll like that boy. He might be knowing that he has to do all these things, but he will never be able to interact with the dogs. The same way, our desire, our desire to become a consistent trader is more important. Only then we will not do all these kind of mistakes, and we'll focus on these particular steps. And the exercises, what we are going to do, that is going to, that we will look at in the next session. So I hope today it was very useful. We will continue. Yes, thank you, Rakesh ji. We will continue this session tomorrow. and hopefully we might be able to complete the exercises, and we'll put these things into practice in real scenario as well. So with this, we end this today's session. Thank you. Thanks a lot for participating. Good night. Bye bye.